Alright, so I'll be honest with you. Elden Ring has become one of my favorite games. The problem, I kind of took too long to get this video out. I have been sitting on this footage since, well, February.
Tell a story.
And to be frank, I should have gotten this video out a long time ago. But here we are. This is gonna be a video on my first playthrough of Elden Ring. Since I finished recording this video, I will be straight up front. I have already gotten to the last New Game Plus, and I am waiting to basically just play the DLC when it comes out next week. So, we got a lot to cover here. I have about 2 hours worth of footage to get through here, and it's only gonna get longer. Well, not really. Like, I cut this down from 100 plus hours to about 2.5. And to be frank, I kind of wish I could have cut it down more, but there's a lot of things I have to explain about how we got to this point. Now, I will preface this. When I started playing this game, I had no idea what the story of this game was. Which is kind of why I, actually watched the cutscenes. Which, these cutscenes, they're pretty long. An addendum to that, most of the time, watching the cutscenes usually ended up with me getting my butt kicked the first time around. I will preface this by saying I am not good at this game. There's a lot of getting my butt kicked in this game that you're gonna have to get used to. So here we are at the start of the game, and
chieftain of the Badlands.
My initial thoughts were like, I'm going into this game having no idea what I'm doing.
Fear,
and
the deathbed companion.
To be frank, I figured things out pretty quickly, but not in the, well, what I would say the right way of doing things. And we'll get into that later. But to start off with, the character I chose was the astrologer. Now, I will be honest. Depending on how you look at it, choosing astrologer may or may not have been a big mistake. Because when I saw astrologer, I was like, oh, this person can use magic. I want to use magic. Magic sounds awesome. Well, magic in this game has its own problems, and I didn't know that going into this. I didn't really know that Elden Ring was was actually an RPG, where you do physical combat. I really kind of thought it was just a fighting game. So, here's my character, the astrologer, and the first thing we do is we just go ahead and try to figure out what's going on in the church here. Alright, so, first thing we do, we open up to see all of the Lands Between. At the time, I didn't know the place was called the Lands Between. I mean, kind of hard to know it's called the Lands Between if you didn't actually like pay attention to the lore, or you don't read the item descriptions, because this game doesn't exactly spoon feed you the lore. Something I found out later on, and I'm not sure why I was doing like this whole zigzag motion at the start of the game. But here is technically the first boss. Technically. So this whole grafted Scion that just lands here is entirely designed to just kill you straight off the bat. Like, you're given no healing items, and you're given no way to restore your magic, and you're pretty much supposedly supposed to be outmatched. And here's the thing, you can actually kill this thing without dying. Obviously, at this point in the game, I'm not good enough to pull such a thing off. But dying here doesn't actually matter. It's kind of a scripted thing where you die, yes, but you end up in this hole that a lot of Tarnished end up being tossed into. Which, you know what? Fine. I guess that's just how the story goes. We wake up in a mysterious church, and then we wake up in a hole. I mean, this is kinda gonna be a running gag here, where every time we get knocked out, we wake up somewhere that's entirely relevant to the story. And
don't worry, Torrent.
This person's gonna become relevant to the story later, but I didn't know how relevant she was. Also, that horse is named Torrent. We end up using him a lot in combat later.
One of her kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring.
So,
even if it does violate the Golden Order.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going on, other than the fact that there's this Elden Ring, and we have to go seek it out. So, we wake up, and we start to wander around. But these cutscenes take quite a while to get through if you aren't willing to skip through them. If I were to add in the cutscenes, this video would probably be about twice as long. Like, I've kept in a couple of the, more relevant cutscenes, but the not-so-relevant ones I've sort of just cut out. So, we're gonna go ahead and head on into the Cave of Knowledge. Now, you can, in fact, actually just skip the Cave of Knowledge, but, I choose to not do that. And I had the benefit of, like, having my brother explain to me some of the more basic concepts of this game, like the whole healing flasks and things like that. What I didn't know is that, you should really primarily be focusing on the red flasks, but, my character being a wizard, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to allocate my flash charges to magic, because, magic is my main way of dealing damage. And we start off with two spells, Glintstone Pebble and Glintstone Arc. One is more useful than the other, and it's not Glintstone Arc. Glintstone Arc really kind of only comes in handy if you're facing a whole bunch of enemies. but that's about it. So this is the tutorial, and like even at the start of the game, I'm like, I'm gonna have to conserve my magic, aren't I? So I run around with my sword. To be honest, I really should have been paying attention to these instructions here. But I tended to pick things up pretty quickly. One thing that really did get to me a lot in this game is the range on magic is really funky, and when I later go on to play Dark Souls, I tended to find that it was pretty much the exact same. But here I also come to like discover the mechanic that if an enemy is using a shield, they can block magic damage too. So there is that. But as long as you can lock onto an enemy, you can sort of use magic on them. No guarantee, though. So, we're gonna go ahead and continue on through the cave. Alright, so here we encounter our first boss. It was really strange for me to like realize that a lot of bosses are like usually behind these like golden fog walls. But that's not always the case. Like the first time around you'll occasionally see that some bosses are not behind a fog wall. And I end up cutting a lot of stuff here. We're going to this side of Grace here. We can rest at the side of Grace and meet Melina. Now, Melina is actually the most important person in the game for us, because she allows us to level up. But we have to agree to work with her. Otherwise, we can't level up. If you refuse to work with her, you are stuck at
Traveler
the
from
level
beyond the fog.
you start at.
I am Melina.
And here's the thing. There have been to my knowledge, there are playthroughs where people have actually managed to like exploit their way to not having to deal with her. But
Offer you
to my
an
knowledge,
accord.
that's something that's absolutely ridiculous and not something I'd be willing to do. But
Have you heard
we
of the
make a
Finger
deal with her
Maidens?
and
They
agree to work
serve
with her.
The Two Fingers, offering guidance and aid
So
to the tarnished.
from this point, we go ahead and
But
move
you-
on.
I am afraid.
But if I were to
maidens.
tell her no, I'd be in trouble for a while, and I'd eventually
I
have to
can
come
play
back
the
to her.
role of maiden, turning runes into strength to aid you in your search for the Elden Ring. You need only take me with you to the foot of the Erd Tree. Then it's settled. Summon me by grace, to turn runes into strength. Ah, another matter. I bequeath to you this ring. Use it to traverse great distances. It will summon a spectral steed named Torrent. Torrent has chosen you. Treat him with respect. Shall I turn your runes to strength? Let my hand rest upon you. For but a moment, share them with me. Your thoughts, your ambitions, the principles you would follow.
Alright, so, upon making our way here to the Waypoint Ruins on our horse, this is actually the most important stop for a magic character. I didn't really know this, other than the fact that, this is where you have to go to, like, get some basic spells. You kind of gotta come here if you want to use more than, like, Glintstone Pebble or Glintstone Arc straight off the bat. So, first thing I generally do is I generally summon, the dogs. This becomes a really common occurrence for me. Like, for some reason, and you'll see this, like, as I play, like, significantly later into the game, I just tend to rely on the dogs for a lot of my fights. But, I should not have been locking onto the pumpkin head during this fight. At the time, I didn't know this, but locking onto the, locking onto the pumpkin head has a unique problem where if you lock onto the head, you're hitting the, like, metal helmet, and that metal helmet is very resistant to magic. It's also a very rare drop item, but good luck farming for that. So this is where we meet Sorceress Selen. We end up dealing with her quite a lot, but she dealing with her actually eventually leads to me learning a very specific spell that will allow me to beat the game. But we'll get into that way later, probably about 2 hours into this. But it is what it is. We deal with her, and then we move on.
Very well. You are now my protege in Glintstone sorcery. But I refuse to coddle or cast kind words. Never. Anticipate grievances, young apprentice.
Alright, so, what we have here is a sped up example of what I did early on here. So, one of the ways I tended to, like, get through the game was through level grinding. And there were two ways we could level grind. One is by fighting the plants, and the other I tended to find is right behind the shack here. there's like 5 giants where I could use magic to get like 5,000 runes a run, which if I was careful, I could pretty easily just do that. But it wasn't exactly like the best way to go about doing that. So then I ended up traveling to the southern region of the map because here is another thing about this game. Largely speaking, I had no idea where I was supposed to go. And I had a history of just, like, trying to, like, just explore places and make a lot of mistakes. Like, I would generally just, like, try to fight everything. And, like, I actually did not need to come to this castle. It was completely optional. Something I tended to do was I tried to go around doing, like, as many, like, not optional quests. I mean, as many optional quests as possible. Which is part of the reason why it took me more than 100 hours to get through this game in its entirety. Like, it said you can beat this game in, like, around 30 hours, and I'm like, yeah, if you want to just, like, rush through everything. And, you know, not play a sorcerer, like I did. Like, if I actually focused on just being a melee character, this game probably would have been a lot shorter. So, the castle we just entered earlier, this was the boss fight. Here is where I tend to, like, pick up on the fact that coming here was a mistake. I just get absolutely destroyed by this guy. So, getting destroyed, I pretty much had to go like, oh, hey, you know, I need to take, like, a completely different approach to the game. So, do what any person does when they're, like, stuck in a game nowadays. I go ask people for advice. And let me tell you, there's a lot of advice on the internet. Not all of it's good. But we tend to figure things out. Because, at this point, I was clearly lost. So I ended up spending quite a bit of time exploring. Well, I heard and read on the internet about this absolutely amazing sword called the Sword of Night and Flames. Spoiler alert, I go get it. Downside is I have no idea how to properly use it because I'm bad at the game. So, I attempt to get into the manor where I need the sword. This is where things get really interesting, because trying to get into the manor, we run into a unique issue where, like, oh hey, you can rest at this site of grace here, and keep trying to get in there. The real trick is to just go around the side and just, like, rush the entrance. But I didn't really tend to figure that out. So, you see, I end up just spending a whole heck of a lot of time getting set up. So, we end up doing a lot of running around. And a lot of this stuff I tend to like, figure out, like, oh, hey, you can only go some certain ways, and I tend to end up taking a lot of wrong turns. Like, this graveyard, completely wasting my time. Like, there was no reason for me to fight these rats. But I do so anyways. So, trying to run past all of the, like, magic lasers that shoot from the sky. Well, not lasers, they're arrows. We make it to the site of grace. Now, here is going to be one of the more, like, interesting parts of the game for me. Getting set up in this game, if you know what you're doing, is pretty easy, but I had no clue what I was doing. So, like, I end up referring to, like, this internet guide from, God, what is it called again? Let me look this up here. What's it called? Yeah, the Elden Ring wiki, like, Extra Life, which I generally refer to for, like, information on this game now. So we just run through, like, the entire manor until we just get to a certain point. Sadly, you can't use your horse in this area. At this point, I tended to figure out that, like, oh, hey, certain areas you just can't use your horse because they're just like, no, you gotta run through this area without your horse. And I almost, had I gotten hit by that purple beam right there, I would have died, by the way. Like, I didn't quite figure out that, like, oh, hey, you kind of need to level your health if you're gonna do this. So I ended up having to, like, heavily follow, like, a tutorial as to, like, figure out where I need to go. Because there's a specific pathway you have to take to get this item. And if you don't know that pathway, you're gonna have a bit of trouble. And me being me, I'm like, I see an item, I gotta go get it. So, this area up here, all the enemies here spawn in as you approach. So you kind of just have to, like, run past everything and hope you, don't die. And it takes pretty much, like, a full bar of my magic to, like, actually beat these guys. Which did not bode well for me, by the way. Yeah. Damage in this game is something that just takes a while for me to, like, figure out how to properly do. And unfortunately, I also end up running, like, to where I'm not supposed to go. This was not where I was supposed to go. Looking back on this, I'm like, oh, hey, past me was a moron. Don't do this. But it is what it is. Like, I don't think anyone has, like, what they would call a perfect first playthrough of the game. But I end up grabbing the Side of Grace up here, and making my way back in my attempt to get the Sword of Night and Flame. Yeah, fast travel is a thing in this game. Which, by the way, some people play the game without fast travel. I commend them for doing so, but it's really hard for me to do that. So, like, at this point in time, I'm pretty much just pausing the game and just, like, referring to, like, a set of images on the website. Because Fextra Life actually has, like, some very basic images as to, like, how to get there. And, like, it's much easier to understand if you actually look up a video on how to get there. But with the way YouTube works now, YouTube takes quite a bit of time to, like, actually load things. And, like, down on the left there is the building I need to get to. But, like, I don't really realize that until, like, I actually get over here and, like, start looking at the bottom here. And for some reason, like, my footage was just, like, lagging here for some reason. Like, I'm not sure why. And I almost die here, which is not good. But it is what it is. So once we gain our bearings, we can get the sword. The sword is actually going to be really relevant to our playthrough. It's just past me doesn't really know how to properly use it. And we have to drop down here. Because they did a really good job of hiding this weapon. Arguably, though, this is the easiest legendary weapon in the game. To get your hands on. Because it's technically available, like, at the very start of the game. Now, here is a problem. We lack the requirements to wield it. So, here's the thing. Weapons in this game have requirements. And I didn't really realize that because I'm a moron and was not paying attention to that. So there is that. And I, of course, have no idea how to properly wield it. Because, like, lo and behold, past me is a moron who doesn't really figure these things out. So what past me ends up doing is trying out the sword here and then doing a slight upgrade to it. But we tend to just return back to beating up the giants here, or trolls as they're called. I prefer to think of them as giants. But leveling in this way doesn't really work out all that well. So the next thing we end up doing is we end up taking a sort of shortcuts of sorts, because we figure out that, like, we're not doing enough magic damage because there's no way I can currently upgrade my stuff the way I would like to. So we end up visiting these ruins and taking a trapped chest. As it turns out, this game doesn't have mimics. They have trapped chests, which sort of act as teleporters to, like, typically dangerous locations. I end up finding the Twin Blade here. Past me does not know how good the Twin Blade is, by the way. Twin Blade is pretty great if you can get the right stuff on it. But, yeah, we really need to go ahead and, like, get out of here. And past me is just, like, utterly confused as to what I'm supposed to do, when, in reality, I could have just called Torrent and called up Torrent and easily get out of there. Yeah, past me should not have hesitated. Those dogs are dangerous. Dogs in this game, absolutely terrifying to deal with. Like, when I later play Dark Souls, because I just recently played Dark Souls, by the way. Still posting my playthrough of that. I found the dogs in Dark Souls to be just as annoying as the dogs in this game. But mere did I know that the dogs actually get worse the farther you go into the game. So the strap chest takes us to where I'm gonna need to go. So we end up in the Celia Crystal Tunnel, which, by the way, if you want to, like, upgrade your weapons, you're gonna have to end up coming back here eventually. But you're actually best off at this point in the game not bothering to try and fight the guys, and instead just running out of the cave. Because at the start of the cave, or tunnel, there is a Site of Grace. Grab that, and, like I did, and then skedaddle on out of here, because the area we're in, we don't have the map for yet, but we need to grab a very important item in this area. Alright, so from here, we really pick up the last thing I really need to grab before the before we really kick things off. I'm not gonna go over, like, grabbing everything in this game, but heading through the swamp here to grab a very specific item is really kind of important. Here we can grab the meteorite staff and a, like, rock slinging spell. And this area is really confusing to navigate. But once you manage to find it, well, you're in a pretty good spot. Yeah, the meteorite staff is what we're looking for. And the other item we're looking for is the spell. Now, I'm not sure why past me was just, like, crouching down here, but like, the more I look at, like, past me's actions, the more I'm like, God, past me was such a moron. Like, what were we thinking? Okay, basically, past me got trapped in here. That's what was the problem. So, we move on through here, and we go get the gravity spell we need to grab. Which basically just means I have to go look for, like, a set of stairs going down, which is surprisingly more difficult than you might think, given the natural fog that occurs in this game. But this is where we need to be, and this is what we need to grab. We grab this, and we'll pretty much be able to stomp most early game enemies. Rock Sling. Unfortunately, you also can't fast travel out of this little area here, but we end up dealing with that by just heading on up and dealing with the bad guys. So we end up returning to the boss fight from earlier, where we got absolutely stomped. And we come equipped with new fancy weapons and spell. And this time around, we aim for victory. And, past me didn't think to play things out all that well. But we do huge chunks of damage with the rock sling spell. Because we're just chucking actual rocks, which at this point are more effective than a good chunk of weapons. But we end up getting the Grafted Great Blade, which, legendary weapon, but not exactly all that great for us. But it is what it is. Like, a good chunk of weapons are just not that great. And then, I end up returning to level grinding for some reason, because, generally when, I want to do something, I just go level grind, and sometimes I die while level grinding. It happens, early on. At the time, I didn't exactly, like, know what the best way to, farm was. But, I started using, like, the sort of Night and Flame to, like, try to do some, like, fancy farming. Which, in reality, using the sort of Night and Flame to farm is actually more inefficient than I would have thought. Like, it turns out using Rock Sling ends up being more efficient. But I just like to show off the Sword of Night and Flame, because I do eventually figure out, like, how to use the laser beam, but it's just not, like, something I end up doing all that often, because I tend to find that just chucking actual magic attacks at things just tends to be more effective than the laser beam, given the sort of Night and Flame's, like, really awkward hitbox. Because the hitbox for that laser beam is really awkward. Alright, then the next thing I end up doing is going to fight the dragon here. Like, just to demonstrate how effective Rock Sling ends up being. With Rock Sling, you can pretty consistently stagger the dragon and do, like, a whole boatload of damage. As well as use Sword of Night and Flame to, like, actually take it off. Not exactly a clean kill, but I tend to have found that, like, oh hey, some enemies you can just easily take on. So then I go around, like, looking for enemies to fight, such as this Tree Burial Watchdog. Like, a lot of these, like, early enemies here just end up melting with rock sling. And I tend to have at this point in the game, I tend to, like, really take enjoyment in, like, taking on these easy bosses. But, looking back, it's not exactly all that impressive. But then we move on to facing the actual bosses, because up until now, I hadn't been facing like really difficult enemies. Basically, our first real enemy here is Morgoth, or Margit at the time. And I'll go ahead and, like, show you how that plays out.
Emboldened by the flame of ambition.
So we ended up handling Margit pretty well. Like, it wasn't exactly the best way of doing that, but I end up handling him pretty well. He does end up stomping me, like, in a future playthrough, but once you fight him the first couple of times, you tend to pick up on how he does things. Now we have our next fight. Godric the Grafted. Honestly, not gonna lie. My personal experience with Godric the Grafted. Awesome cutscene. Interesting boss fight.
Mighty dragon.
But not that difficult.
Thou art a true born
after you beat him the
heir.
first time.
Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well. Alone tarnished. Playing as a lord. I command thee, kneel! I am the lord of all that is golden. mightiest of dragons. Lend me thy strength. Return together to our home, bathed in rays of gold.
So, with Godric out of the way, we earn our first Great Rune. Now, these Great Runes, I'll be honest, not exactly all that great. So, after a lot of time skipping and a lot of exploration, like, I end up just exploring a lot of places. I even end up accidentally, like, bypassing a couple of bosses because I just don't know how to beat them. So, there is that. Like, part of... Okay, so... The point between fighting Godric, the Grafted, and a whole heck of a lot of other people, is a lot longer than it should have been. Because, I'll be honest, I really didn't know what I was doing. A good chunk of this game pretty much just ended up being me, just wandering around, like, not knowing what I was doing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of annoying, like, looking back, that I didn't really have a clue of what I was doing. Because part of my problem was I got stonewalled at a couple of points. And we'll get to that when we get to covering the boss fights. But there's a good reason I was stonewalled, and it's not for the reason people might think. It's actually generally just a matter of, like, stats. But I do end up, like, seeking out boss fights and doing, like, minor side quests. Some of these side quests end up being pretty significant. I at the time didn't exactly know that I wasn't supposed to meet certain people until, like, later on. But I ended up choosing to take on, like, this ancestor spirit because, like, I had a hunch that this was an optional boss fight, and I'm just like, you know, it sounds fun, and isn't that like one of the trailer bosses? Which, funnily enough, despite this being one of the easier boss fights, I actually have a pretty hard time of it. Like, there's a history here where looking back, like, I tended to, like, struggle with the boss fights that, like, really should have been easy. And in I am messing up my wording here. In future playthroughs, I tend to just end up absolutely destroying these boss fights. But in this first one, not so much. The struggle is real. So there is that. But a good chunk of these boss fights just take like several minutes because I'm just like not very good at like dealing with these guys. But alright, so gonna mute the audio here for like a moment of like the end game. This is where I started live streaming my playthrough of the game. This is where I actually end up having like a ton of technical problems with my footage, and it's both my fault and kind of a self-inflicted wound here. The audio quality is drastically different when I stream because I had to really like cut down on the sound volume. But I started live streaming my attempts at trying to make it through this game like later on here. So there is that. So you're gonna get live commentary from me at this point. Gosh darn it, it's changing my target like the moment I lock on. Whoa there. That's some cheating moves. Alright, where's the last caster? Where is it? Where could she be? I can't find the last caster. Okay, there we go. Okay, we won that time. Remembrance of the full moon. So, finally, having beaten Renala, I can actually move on to our next area here. Which, we have to make it past this next boss, which is not optional, by the way. No matter how much I wish it was. This boss, the Draconic Tree Sentinel, I actually recommend bringing in a bunch of summons that can actively distract it while either taking it on at a range or just going out of your way to, like, not take it on up close. Because I actually went and, like, learned some of the more powerful spells just so I can take them down, which, given I consider that boss to be harder than Renala, says a lot. But with this, we can move into the capital. Dragon Claw Shield. Oh, there's a Light of Grace up ahead. I can level up, I think. Oh god, I just stumbled upon a boss. This is not good. Yeah, there are some professors that just straight up hate your guts sometimes. Oh, wow. Okay. I don't think I was supposed to be able to defeat that guy this easily. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, okay. And my best bet is to, like, keep a distance. Because there's clearly, like, a range here. That I really don't know. And, whoa, wait a moment. Okay, yeah, this works. Okay. Whew! Okay. So, night sorceries. That's the way to go. So, upon beating Morgott here, we find out that, like, oh hey, our path to the inside of the Erd Tree is blocked. So we're gonna have to basically burn the whole thing down if we want to get inside there and claim the Elden Ring and all that. Well, Melina, who ditched us earlier because she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go meet up with my friends and all that, decides to do that. So I end up going around and doing a bunch of other things before then. So upon defeating Morgoth, past me decides to just straight up go take on Radon, who is one of the harder bosses in the game, but I tend to have an easier time with him nowadays. So there is that. So sit back and enjoy the coming sequence.
Welcome! The stars have aligned! The festival is nigh! General Radon, mightiest demigod of the Chakra. Glory and grab that great rune! A celebration of war! Are you good in the festival?
Before we begin, allow me to paint you the full picture. General Radon is cursed ever to wander. Eaten from the inside by Melania's scarlet rot, his wits are long gone. Now he gathers the corpses of former friends and foes alike, gorging on them like a dog. Howling at the sky. But now, we must make merry.
O gathering of champions, the revels begin! The celebration of war! The Radon Festival!
You will find the general were divested and howling.
Alright, so after defeating Radon, I end up exploring the areas that are unlocked by defeating Radon and picking up the items there. Here is where I tend to pick up on the fact that some bosses are really kind of reskins of other bosses, but sometimes it's just a different moveset. Like it's something that you pick up on if you play through the game long enough. But at the time, I of course didn't really know that. But honestly, after a while, you tend to not really care. After a while, you tend to figure out that some bosses are pretty much the same. But this boss had a rather unique gimmick where it could actually heal itself, which I honestly figured I'd include this like little minor moment here as like a moment where like I tend to pick up on the fact that like, oh hey, some of these bosses end up being rather unique. This boss tends to like drag things out here, but we still manage to win. Because it's pretty much just the same as an earlier boss fight. Just, it can heal itself.
Alright, let's
and then
try
I
this
end up
again,
heading
shall we?
north and fighting Commander Nile. But, not as
Alright,
relevant.
go after the one on the left here. Okay, why is it, like... Alright, come on. I need to heal up. Yeah, this guy is overpowered. Okay, we got him. We got him. Okay. Veteran's prosthesis. Oh, I'm out of healing items. I chewed through all of my healing items for that. Alright, which way did we come through? Oh god.
Alright, so the next boss fight is the fire giant here. Now, here's the thing about the fire giant. The fire giant, in my experience, having played through the game the first time, and then subsequent times, I tended to pick up on a number of things. The first being, that if you don't get it right the first time, you have to enter that fog wall, and there is a significant delay when you enter through that fog wall. I ended up having to do this fight multiple times, and entering through that fog wall is actually really inconvenient. It's actually enough of a problem to where I actually, like, really don't like the idea of having to redo this boss fight. And I just barely survive here. This is actually gonna be a really major issue going forward, where I just have just enough HP to get through. Because I managed to, like, barely survive. And this entire boss fight, I am just, like, desperately trying not to die. And I honestly should have, like, invested in switching up my flash charges here, because I'm down to, like, 1 HP after getting stomped. This boss fight also has, like, a mid-boss fight cutscene where they just rip off the leg. And I'll be honest here, this is not a pleasant boss fight. Especially if you're, like, stuck here like me, where I got caught in the leg here, and I'm just firing my laser, because I went and did the side quest to get the laser, which, really big fan of the laser. Unfortunately, it's also, like, this gigantic mana hog. But we overcome it through the power of overwhelming firepower. I quickly learned that overwhelming firepower doesn't get me very far past this point. But I was clearly very happy to have won here. Alright, so the next thing we end up doing is we end up burning the Erd tree itself. Unfortunately, this causes us to depart with Melina. Now, I would have, like, played this with audio, but for some reason, the audio for, like, a good chunk of my later playthrough here is just absolutely gone. Something happened with the recordings. Considering most of my later recordings were, done live, that's an issue, but we end up waking up in Farum Azula. But we end up just, like, in a place beyond space and time, really. Because that's what Farum Azula is. Also, Farum Azula, my least favorite place in the game, not because of how challenging it is. It's actually because this entire area can cause your PC to crash in later versions of the game. So much so that I actually end up in future playthroughs just like skipping, like, the dragon at the start, because the dragon at the start causes your game to crash in a lot of cases. Even to this day, where the game has been through, like, a whole heck of a lot of updates, it's an issue. So, then we move on to facing the Beast Clergyman here. It's a 2-part boss fight. And I'll be honest, you do not want to get hit by this guy. Uh, this is actually one of the more challenging boss fights in the entire game, and I, for the life of me, get really lucky here and line up a perfect shot with Comet Azure. Um, that's just me getting really lucky. But after that, we unseal Destined Death and bring back the ability to die to the lands between. We get this awesome dramatic cutscene of where we claim the rune of death and the lands between begins to burn. Now we end up claiming the rune. This is an automatic cutscene, so it happens like immediately after we beat the boss. So there is that. But having unbound the rune, we get to see the results of our own actions. The various denizens of the lands between end up looking towards the tree that is now fully burning. Which, to be honest, is absolutely terrifying. If I were to look up at that, I'd be absolutely horrified. But we end up in the Ashen Capital, which, basically, upon burning the tree is so large that upon burning it, we just fill the entire capital with ash. So much so that the previous landmarks in the capital that we visited are no longer visitable. But I ended up exploring the sewers underneath the capital. This is a mistake, by the way. But upon doing so, where was I? Upon doing so, I end up encountering another boss here. I don't actually have the footage of me defeating Mog, like, in a different area, but this is one of the two versions of Mog you can actually fight. And here I actually pick up on, like, the combo of being able to just set up this infinite laser beam trick, which unfortunately I don't get to pull off because I get set on fire. Yeah, fun fact, really kind of just getting used to, like, some of my more conventional tactics I end up picking up later on, because you tend to pick up, like, certain tactics as you go through the game, and you tend to just, like, stick to them. And in an enclosed space like this, I am at a major disadvantage. But we end up getting this nice little treasure chest, which contains the Erdtree's Favor +1. This is an entirely optional boss, by the way. But while I was streaming, a viewer told me to, like, roll against the back section here. Which in itself has a hidden secret behind it. Of course, talking with the viewer is exactly what caused me to spend so much time doing this here. But just hitting this reveals, like, a super secret area that I end up exploring later. Of course, my initial reaction to this is very perplexed, because we end up going in here, and I see these petrified corpses, and I'm just like, no, I'm gonna move on. So then I end up facing Sir Gideon Ofnir. It takes me multiple tries to get through this. Mainly because I made a mistake in dealing with this guy. So this is a very unique boss fight, because it's one of those boss fights that really doesn't increase in difficulty unless you do certain things. So this boss fight increases in difficulty based on, like, where you've been to. So, like, say you go do a certain side quest, he'll end up picking up traits and tricks from that boss fight. But beating him is nice. But this boss fight also, like, highlights that I can just be easily one-shot. So this is where we fight Godfrey. Godfrey, honestly, not gonna lie, pretty difficult boss fight. I actually went and did Nefeli's side quest just so I could, like, have her as a meat shield. Because if you do Nefeli's quest, you get to have her as, like, a summonable companion. And she makes a really good meat shield in pretty much every version of this fight. But I do manage to get, like, a good Comet Azure off here, which is why I managed to win. This is the last, like, real fight where Comet Azure, like, really allows me to, like, pull this level of shenanigans. Because Comet Azure tends to fall off at some points. And this is the fight where it falls off. So this is it. The last boss fight of the game. This is gonna be a bit awkward. So here's the dealio here. We get to do this whole boss fight, but we get curb stomped. Like, I just get absolutely stomped. So this leads to what I would call the training arc, where I go around fighting and doing as many quests as I possibly can, and picking up spells. One of the spells I end up picking up comes from Sorceress Selene here. There's a spell reward you get from her by doing her quest called Shard Spiral. Shard Spiral, as it turns out, becomes one of the most broken spells in the game, but I can't exactly go into that without spoiling what happens up ahead. But we also pick up this wedding ring here. I do this as part of Ronnie's quest line. Because as part of my like training arc, I end up doing Ronnie's quest line as well.
Well, might as well explore the rest of Ronnie's quest line while I work on getting stronger here. And seeing as we are going to be in a rather unpleasant place, that I am assuming is going to be filled with rot.
So to preface this, I actually end up just going through here, and I actually go collect some items to just not have to deal with this area. Because there's an item you can pick up called a Beast Repellent Torch, and a spell called Flame Cleanse Me. Both of these are absolutely crucial to me just, like, walking through this entire area without problems. And this entire sequence takes, like, quite a bit of time, which is why I've, like, drastically sped up and, like, muted the in-game audio to get through this. Because it's really kind of annoying. But I do stop to, like, deal with this boss that spawns here. Like, he drops an item called, like, the Alabaster Lord's Sword, which does this, like, gravity slam. Not exactly my preferred item, but I end up picking it up anyways, because you gotta pick up all the drops. So, once we get to this point, we can sort of just, like, figure out how to get down to where we need to go. And there's a site of grace up ahead, which will lead us to our next area here.
Alright.
So, to preface this,
get in the
we
coffin.
gotta jump into the coffin.
Especially
the coffin
fun
leads us
for the
to our boss
talisman
fight
you get.
here.
Alright, this is only going to end poorly. Surprisingly strong coffins are canonically indestructible. Oh, surprisingly stone coffins are canonically indestructible. Okay. Or at least that's what it seems like. Oh, this one also gives a remembrance. Oh, that'll be nice. Provided I can actually hit the guy. Alright. Big laser. Yeah, we're gonna have to learn the attack patterns here. Yeah, that could have gone better. Up. Just keep rolling. Just keep rolling, boys. We did it.
So after defeating Estelle of the Natural Void, we end up heading up into the area above this boss fight, where we end up encountering another boss fight, which I have to do several times. So,
But this time
there's
around,
that.
we're ready. We're ready for this. Alright, Dragon. I'm back for round 3. Now, if you could somehow not be out of my range, that would be great. Alright. Well. There we go. Oh, we got a Dragon Heart and a Moonblade spell. Nice. This is a blatant trap. Oh, yeah, we can also see an Evergoal on the map here, which I'm gonna have to go fight that and after I get another level up. Oh, what happened here? That's 3 fingers. Oh, she killed a finger. Incredible. Alright, let's talk with Ronnie.
It was thee who would become my lord. Perhaps I needn't have warned thee. I am pleased, however. Thou art a fitting choice. I go now to the night sky. It is there I shall find mine order. I bid thee travel the path of the Lord, and once all is done, we shall see each other once more.
Oh, she disappeared. Dark Moon Greatsword. Causes frost buildup. Ah, not bad. Definitely a niche weapon for causing frostbite, but if it works, it works.
Alright, so this next section here, we end up moving on, and up in this area, there's an Evangel with a very specific enemy that we have to take down. This Evangel has an enemy called Black Knife Ringleader Electo. Now, Electo is a very personal problem here for me, because Electo is very good at dodging, and that attack actually burns away at your HP. So if you get hit by it, it's a problem. But Black Knife Electo is actually really important to beating the rest of the game, for me at least. While we're up here, we also end up picking up the Ronnie's Dark Moon spell, which is really useful for some future boss fights. Not gonna go into all of them, but it does play a role coming up here later. But beating her, we get the Black Knife Teach summon, which I end up using for most of these later boss fights. So while on this training arc, I end up, like, noping out of... Well, this area I ended up noping out of, like, earlier. I was told there's, like, a super secret boss fight I could go find, down this way. But, it was mainly a viewer who, like, told me this. And, like, here's the thing. At this point, I was really kind of just streaming to, like, figure out what I was supposed to do in this game, because I couldn't seem to beat the final boss. So, I got told about, like, there being a bunch of, like, secrets down here. So I decided to go explore. Well, here is my least favorite section of this area, where we have to do parkour. And it turns out there's, like, a specific set of weapons or ashes of war that allows you to bypass all of this parkour. But I didn't know about that, so I just died continually. Like, that's just how this went. Eventually, I make it to the bottom here.
I'm gonna have to, like, respec my character at this point. Oh! Oh, crap. I didn't expect that to happen. Alright. Alright, don't go through the big glowy door. Okay, let's not go through the big glowy door then. Oh, there's a secret wall somewhere? Okay, time to start rolling into things. When in doubt, just roll into everything. There we go. Aha. A rune arc. Oh, hey! There's another wall behind another wall! Aha! And people wonder why this game gives me trust issues. Welcome to the deep root depths. Wow. Okay, yeah, this place is absolutely terrifying. Is that a giant bee? No, that's ants. That's just as bad. Alright. Well, I am in for a bad time. Okay, so you're saying that behind the Grace, you're gonna see some weird fish monster that was Godwin's original body. Oh dear God. Is this the hidden boss? Am I in for a bad time? Oh, it's not the boss? Then what is the point of this thing? Oh, it's just his corpse. And it's being eaten by, like, an infinite number of flies. Oh, it's lore. Ah, yeah, that would make sense. But I would have figured we would have fought some sort of, like, undead. Right below him is Fia. Alright, we'll go back. Fia's champion. Wait, let me summon my puppies first. There we go. Now, let's have a nice chat. Sorcerer Rogier. We have to fight our good friend Rogier? I'm sorry, buddy, but this was the only way. Okay, our wolves are putting in work. Fia's missed. Talk to Fia. I want to be held. Oh, I'm gonna have to run a couple of errands? Well, it wouldn't be... It wouldn't be me if I didn't have to do a bunch of fetch quests. No, it's perfectly fine. Just some, technical difficulties. Alright, Radiant Baldachin's Blessing. Oh, yeah, hold on a moment. I have an idea. Give me a moment. Gonna have to tab out and... There we go. Yeah, I can see you, Drums. Alright. We went to the Grace, and she is now sleeping. Enter the deathbed dream. Oh, well, we're in trouble. Oh, never mind. We got this. There we go. Remembrance of the Lich Dragon. Oh, that wasn't so bad. Provided there's no second phase or anything. Received Mending Rune of the Death Prince.
All right, so this next part of our journey here has been slightly sped up here. I was told about a secret boss fight here in Farum Azula where I have to like look around for like the trigger here. Where if you lie down, you get taken to a secret boss arena. Now, I'll go ahead and say this. We end up getting our rear kicked really hard. But to be honest, I'm kind of okay with that. Because you know what? At the end of the day, like, this just teaches me a valuable lesson of sometimes you have to, like, come back to things. But, this is one of the, like, tougher boss fights. And this boss fight in particular that I come back to is actually what gives me an idea of how I could beat the final boss. Because when I first do this boss fight, I really have no clue what I'm doing. I misjudge the distance because of, like, how far away you can lock onto it from. But we also get, like, pretty much two-shot. And one-shot in this case. Because just a single slap of lightning from that guy, and we die. Alright, let's try this again, shall we? Okay, that time he just straight up one-shot me. Like, this is the kind of BS, like, that shouldn't happen, but it does. So either I need to respec or come back with even more defensive armor. Alright. Alright. Second phase, let's go. Yeah, I gotta remember that, he likes to spawn just outside of our attack range. Alright, there we go. We got him. We got him, boys. Alright, so, I'm gonna preface this really quickly. After defeating Rykard here, we take on Melania, of all people. Who I was told was... who I am told is the hardest boss fight in the game. And the funny thing is, the guide I followed on how to beat this was published by Forbes, so, go ahead and see the results of following that guide. Let's go!
The mark of a true lord.
Obviously, I was very ecstatic to have defeated Melania, because it took me forever to beat her. But immediately moving on from Melania, in the very same stream, I returned back to the boss who beat me earlier with a new plan. Using the spell Shard Spiral.
Alright. Oh god, this thing is hilariously broken. Okay, didn't realize Shard Spiral, like, just absolutely demolished this guy's hitbox.
So I'm gonna preface this real quick for a quick explanation of what happened here. The spell Shard Spiral essentially forms a drill, and that drill is just hitting the enemy multiple times by digging through it, or piercing through it. And this is gonna come in handy when we face the final boss, who has a hitbox the same size as the dragon we just killed. But speaking of the final boss, or he'll swing wide and for some reason just like absolutely decimate us. Or he'll decide to do something like that where he just completely changes up his attack patterns. Alright. Second phase. Alright. So as soon as that fire comes down, we just run away. And this guy keeps running away. Trying to bait me into that. Alright, come on. We did it! We did it! We did it! Let's go!
The battle is over, I see.
I do solemnly swear to every living being and every living soul. Now cometh the age of the stars. 1,000-year voyage under the wisdom of the moon. Here beginneth the chill night that encompasses all, reaching the great beyond. Into fear, doubt, and loneliness, as the path stretcheth into darkness. Let us go together. My dear consort eternal.
We did it! We beat Elden Ring.
Alright, so, before I go ahead and end off the video, I'm gonna go ahead and give some of my thoughts about the end of this playthrough. To start off with, there's a couple of things I really wish I did know. For one, I had been making the mistake of playing on mouse and keyboard when it turns out if you play on controller, things are a lot smoother. The second being, I went into this pretty much with, like, not a lot of idea of how to do this. I really should have started, like, researching how to do things at the start. But, playing through this mostly blind gave me, like, a good idea of what to expect from Souls games. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure how anyone plays through this game blind. But I had fun. Special thanks to my brother for sending me this game for Christmas several months ago. Otherwise, I never would have really picked this game up. I'll be honest, I had a lot of fun streaming this, and I'm at a point where I'm like almost level 600 at the time of recording this. So there is that. But I really should have gotten this video out like months ago. But I just haven't had the time to get around to editing it until now. And given there's about a week and a half until the DLC comes out at the time of like editing this. And when this goes up on Friday, it'll be like a week from when this goes up. So now it's either I upload this now or I never get around to it. So there is that. But this is like a bit of like post-game farming here, where it takes me like an absurd amount of runes to level up. And like, I'll be honest, I am having fun just grinding my way to max level, but that's not going to happen for a while, even with the DLC coming out and the possibility of there being maybe a better place to farm. But I'm going to end things off here. It's been fun. I got my butt kicked for like around 120 hours, but I enjoyed those 120 hours, and there were a lot of moments of where I triumphed and a lot of moments where I failed. But you know what? I had fun, and that's all that matters. The game got me out of, like, a rather not so great period of time where I really didn't know what I was doing. So that's Elden Ring. My first playthrough.